"Get him out of my sight," she snapped, her diamond ring flashing as it flew across the room and struck his bandaged chest. "I didn't marry a broken man." Marcus Hale lay motionless on the vast bed, the beeping machines echoing like a countdown. Just a week ago, he was a billionaire titan, feared in boardrooms, admired in headlines. Now, after the private jet accident that left him supposedly paralyzed, he was nothing more than a burden in the eyes of his wife, Cassandra Hale. Or so she thought. What Cassandra didn't know was that Marcus could feel everything. The cold humiliation, the venom in her voice, and the truth finally spilling out. Within days, Cassandra demanded access to his offshore accounts, his companies, his legacy. She mocked his weakness, threatened to abandon him in a cheap care facility, and made no effort to hide her disgust. To her, love had always been conditional, measured in power and profit. Then came Naomi Carter. Naomi, a black housekeeper with worn shoes and steady hands, entered the room carrying Marcus's twin sons. While Cassandra sneered at the children as inconveniences, Naomi shielded them with her body. When Cassandra screamed, Naomi spoke softly. When Cassandra humiliated Naomi, Naomi offered dignity. She cleaned his wounds, soothed the children's cries, and looked at Marcus not as a fallen billionaire, but as a man in pain. The accident was a test, a cruel one, but necessary. Marcus needed to know who would stay, when everything was stripped away, and the answer was clear. As Cassandra's cruelty reached its peak, Marcus clenched his fist beneath the sheets. He was ready to rise, to expose the lie, and to reclaim his life. But more than that, he had learned something priceless. True loyalty doesn't wear diamonds, it wears courage, compassion, and the quiet strength of someone like Naomi Carter. Cassandra didn't even pretend anymore. The moment the doctors left the room, her mask fell with a soft, terrifying ease. She stood over Marcus like a judge delivering a sentence, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. "You should sign the papers today," she said coldly, already scrolling through her phone. "Your condition is bad for the markets. Investors don't like weakness." Marcus stared at the ceiling, his breath shallow, his body perfectly still. Inside, every word burned. She paced the room, her voice growing sharper with every step. She complained about canceled galas, about how exhausting it would be to be seen pushing a wheelchair, about the embarrassment of being married to a man who could no longer stand beside her. Love to Cassandra had always been a performance, and Marcus was no longer useful for the role. "You're lucky I'm being practical," she scoffed. "Most women would have left already." Then came the threats. If he didn't transfer control of the companies, she would cut off his medical care. If he resisted, she would send him to a remote facility far from the city, far from his children, out of sight, out of mind. Her words were precise, calculated, stripped of any trace of compassion. Marcus felt something shift inside him. Not rage, clarity. This was who she truly was when the power dynamic changed. Not a partner, not a wife, a predator circling what she believed was a dying empire. She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "You should be grateful. I'll make sure you're taken care of." Quietly from the doorway, Naomi watched in silence, her jaw tight, her hands curled into fists at her sides.
She had seen cruelty before, but never dressed so elegantly, never delivered with such entitlement. Cassandra didn't see a man fighting for dignity. She saw an obstacle. And Marcus saw it all. Every insult, every selfish demand, every cruel smile, his eyes, committing every moment to memory. He would remember her words. He would remember her indifference. Because when the truth finally came out, Cassandra Hale would learn that cruelty, once exposed, has consequences, and power built on betrayal never lasts. Cassandra's cruelty didn't stop with Marcus. It spilled over, sharp, merciless, onto the smallest, most defenseless people in the room. When the twins wandered in that afternoon, their tiny footsteps hesitant, their eyes searching for their father, Cassandra's face twisted with open disgust. She didn't lower her voice. She didn't soften her words. She wanted them to hear. "Why are they here?" she snapped, waving a manicured hand as if swatting flies. "I told you I don't want those children anywhere near my room." The boys froze. One clutched the other's sleeve, confused, frightened. They were too young to understand hatred, but old enough to feel it. "They're my sons," Marcus said weakly, forcing the words past the knot in his throat. Cassandra laughed, a short, humorless sound. "Your sons," she scoffed. "They're a reminder of your past mistakes, and now they're my problem." She bent down slightly, just enough to meet their eye level, her smile razor thin. "You don't belong here." The words landed harder than any slap. The twins' faces crumpled. One began to cry quietly, the kind of cry children make when they're trying not to be noticed. Cassandra rolled her eyes. "Pathetic," she muttered, "just like their father." From the corner of the room, Naomi stepped forward without thinking. She placed herself between Cassandra and the twins, her body a shield, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. She pulled the boys close, resting a protective hand on each small shoulder. Cassandra turned on her instantly. "Don't touch them," she hissed, "and don't forget your place." But Naomi didn't move. Marcus watched, helpless on the bed, his heart breaking in real time. Cassandra didn't see children. She saw inconveniences, threats, evidence of a life she hadn't chosen, but now wanted erased. That was the moment something inside Marcus hardened. She could humiliate him, she could threaten him, but the way she looked at his children with contempt, with hatred, that was unforgivable. As the twins buried their faces into Naomi's side, Marcus made a silent vow. No matter how long the test lasted, no matter how much he had to endure, this would end one way only, and Cassandra Hale would never be allowed near his children again. Naomi didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout or threaten or demand respect. She simply stood there. Her body remained between Cassandra and the twins, shoulders squared, chin lifted, as if an invisible line had been drawn on the floor and Cassandra had crossed it. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Please," Naomi said quietly, her voice low but unshaking. "The children are scared. This isn't the place for anger." Cassandra stared at her in disbelief, then laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Did you just tell me what this place is?" she snapped. "You're a housekeeper. You clean. You don't speak." Naomi felt her heart pounding, but she didn't step back. She glanced down at the boys clinging to her, their small fingers twisted into her sleeves, their faces buried against her side. Whatever fear she felt for herself vanished. "I know my place," Naomi replied softly, "and right now, my place is here with them." The words landed heavier than any insult. Marcus watched from the bed, stunned. All his life, power had spoken loud through money, authority, intimidation. But Naomi's strength came from something else entirely. She didn't have wealth. She didn't have protection. All she had was conscience. Naomi moved with gentle purpose. She wiped the tears from one twin's cheek, whispered something soothing, then adjusted the blanket around Marcus's shoulders, as if he were fragile glass. Her touch was careful, human, nothing like the cold efficiency Cassandra showed when she bothered to come near him at all. "You don't deserve this," Naomi murmured, not just to Marcus, but to the children, too. Cassandra turned away in disgust. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "A maid playing savior." But Marcus saw it clearly now. While Cassandra saw weakness and opportunity, Naomi saw pain and chose compassion anyway. She stayed late, spoke gently, carried the children when they were frightened, and treated Marcus with a dignity his own wife had stripped away. In that quiet defiance, Naomi became something more than help. She became the proof Marcus needed, proof that loyalty wasn't bought, proof that humanity still existed in his house, proof that when everything else fell apart, it wasn't power that held people together. It was courage. And Cassandra, without realizing it, had already lost. Cassandra crossed a line that night, and she did it slowly, deliberately, as if she wanted every second to hurt. Marcus whispered that his throat was dry. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even a request. It was the quiet plea of a man pretending to be broken. Cassandra sighed dramatically, snatched the glass from the bedside table, and filled it with water. For a brief moment, Marcus wondered if she might surprise him, if some fragment of the woman he once loved might surface. Instead, she stood over him, smiling. "You want it," she said softly, "then take it." She tilted the glass, not toward his lips, but downward. The water spilled across his chest, soaking the bandages, the sheets, the expensive mattress beneath him. Cold seeped into his skin. His body jerked instinctively, but he forced himself still. Cassandra laughed. "Oops, my mistake." The sound echoed in the room like something breaking. From the doorway came the small sob. The twins had slipped back in, drawn to the tension they didn't understand. When they saw their father wet, shivering, their faces twisted in fear, they ran to him, climbing onto the bed, trying to warm him with their tiny bodies. That was when Naomi moved. She rushed forward, grabbing a towel, drying Marcus's chest with quick, careful hands. She ignored Cassandra completely. Her focus was on the man trembling beneath the sheets, on the children clinging to him like lifelines. "Stop it!" Cassandra screamed. "Don't touch my husband!" "Someone has to," Naomi said, her voice shaking but unyielding, "because you're torturing him." The slap never came, but the punishment did. "You're fired," Cassandra hissed, grabbing Naomi's arm and yanking her back. "Get out of my house now. Take these children and disappear." Marcus felt his heart stop. This was it, the final act of her cruelty, public, absolute, merciless. As Naomi steadied herself and the twins cried openly, now Marcus clenched his fist beneath the wet sheets. Every muscle in his body screamed to rise, to end the lie, to destroy her where she stood. But he didn't, not yet, because Cassandra had just shown him everything he needed to see, and the fall she was about to take would be far worse than anything she had done to him. Naomi didn't cry when Cassandra let go of her arm. She knelt instead, right there on the cold marble floor, pulling the twins close as their sobs shook their small bodies. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "It's okay," she whispered, brushing their hair back gently. "I've got you." Cassandra turned away in disgust, already done with them, already rewriting the world in which none of them existed. The door slammed. The room fell into a heavy, wounded silence. Naomi stayed. She dried Marcus's chest, replaced the soaked sheets with steady efficiency, and tucked the blankets back around him as if this were the most natural thing in the world. No hesitation, no resentment, only care. "I'm sorry," Marcus said hoarsely, forcing the words through a throat tight with something dangerously close to tears. "You didn't deserve any of this." Naomi shook her head slowly. "None of you did." She sat on the edge of the bed, the twins finally quiet, curled against their father's sides. For a moment, she just watched them breathe, as if committing the sight to memory. Then she spoke quickly, as if afraid she might lose her courage if she makes me leave tomorrow. Naomi said, her eyes fixed on the floor, "I have some money saved. Not much, but enough for a small room. You and the boys. You could come with me." Marcus stared at her. She rushed on, embarrassed but determined. "It won't be fancy, and I can't promise it'll be easy, but I won't let them take you away. I won't let them put you somewhere cold and alone." Silence stretched between them. Marcus felt something break open in his chest, something raw, something real. This woman had nothing to gain. No inheritance, no security, only more hardship. And still, she offered everything she had. Wealth had never saved him. Power hadn't protected his children. But here was loyalty in its purest form. Quiet, unpolished, fearless. "Thank you, Naomi," he said softly, his voice no longer trembling from weakness, but from truth. "I won't forget this, ever." She looked up, then surprised by the steadiness in his tone. Outside, the night pressed in, But inside that room, surrounded by borrowed courage and unconditional care, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. When the world turned its back on him, Naomi Carter chose to stay. Marcus lay awake long after the house fell silent, the weight of restraint heavier than the act itself. Every instinct in him screamed to end it, to rise from the bed, to shatter the illusion, to watch Cassandra's face collapse when she realized the man she'd humiliated was never powerless at all. His legs burned with held-back strength. His jaw ached from clenching. The lie had done its job. Now it demanded its price. Patience, his lawyer's words echoed in his mind like a warning bell. If she believes you're incapacitated, she'll sign. If she feels threatened, she'll destroy everything before you can stop her. So Marcus stayed still. When Cassandra returned later that night, her tone had changed. Not softer, but sharper, more calculating. She spoke of paperwork, of notaries arriving in the morning, of doing what's best for everyone. She didn't look at the children. She didn't acknowledge Naomi. Her eyes were fixed on the future. She thought she was about to steal. Naomi hovered close, quiet as a shadow, her presence grounding him. She followed every instruction Cassandra barked, not out of obedience, but strategy. Marcus saw it now, the intelligence behind her calm, the courage behind her silence. She wasn't submitting, she was enduring. At one point, Cassandra turned on her suddenly. "You'll stay until the papers are signed," she said coldly. "After that, you're gone, you and the children. I don't care where." Marcus forced his voice to crack. "If she leaves," he murmured, eyes downcast, "I won't sign." The room froze. Greed won, as he knew it would. Cassandra hesitated only a moment before nodding. Fine. One more night. One more night was all he needed. When Cassandra finally left, the door closing with a hollow finality, Marcus exhaled a breath he'd been holding for days. Naomi moved closer, lowering her voice. "You don't have to pretend with me," she whispered. "Not forever." He met her eyes, then really met them, and for the first time allowed a sliver of truth into his expression. "Tomorrow," he said softly. "Everything changes tomorrow." She didn't ask how. She didn't demand answers. She simply nodded, trusting him with a faith he hadn't earned but desperately needed. Marcus stared at the ceiling as dawn crept closer, heart steady, now resolve unshakable. Cassandra believed she was in control. She believed she'd broken him. She believed this was the end of his power. She was wrong. Because when strength was stripped down to its core, what remained wasn't a bank account, it was choice. Marcus had watched her choose herself over him, choose image over compassion, choose control over humanity. And in doing so, she had revealed a truth no contract could hide. Wealth without conscience is poverty wearing gold. Across the room, Naomi sat quietly with the twins, humming under her breath. Her presence steady and unremarkable in the way real goodness often is. She had nothing Cassandra valued, no influence, no status, no leverage, and yet she possessed what Cassandra never would, the ability to stay when leaving would have been easier. Marcus felt the weight of that realization settle deep in his chest. True richness wasn't measured in assets, but in who remained when everything else was gone. It was found in hands that comforted instead of demanded, in voices that defended instead of humiliated, in courage that asked for nothing in return. Cassandra had seen the accident as an opportunity. Naomi had seen it as a responsibility. That difference changed everything. As footsteps echoed in the hallway, the notary arriving, the final act approaching, Marcus felt no fear, only clarity. Whatever happened next, he already knew the outcome that mattered most. He had learned who loved him when he had nothing to offer. He had learned who would protect his children without being asked. He had learned that dignity does not come from power. It comes from character. The empire Cassandra wanted was built on paper and perception. The legacy Marcus would protect was built on people. And when the truth finally rose, when lies collapsed and masks shattered, one lesson would remain unmovable and undeniable. Money can buy silence, power can force obedience, but only humanity earns loyalty. And in the quiet strength of a woman who chose compassion over comfort, Marcus Hale discovered what it truly meant to be rich. The sound of footsteps in the hallway grew louder. Marcus didn't turn his head, but he felt at the shift in the air, the moment before a storm breaks. The notary had arrived, papers were in hand. Cassandra's victory, as she believed, was finally within reach. She walked in with confidence sharpened by greed, her smile controlled, rehearsed. This was the ending she had written for herself. A broken husband, full control, no witnesses she considered dangerous. She didn't notice the way Marcus's breathing had changed. She didn't see the calm behind his stillness. She didn't understand that this silence was not surrender. It was the final pause before truth stood up. Naomi caught his eye from across the room. No questions, no fear, only trust. Marcus closed his eyes for a brief second, committing the moment to memory. The children safe beside him, the woman who chose compassion over comfort, and the certainty that everything was about to change. The lie had done its work, the mask had slipped, and now the reckoning was inevitable. Sometimes justice doesn't rush in loudly. Sometimes it waits, patient, precise, until those who misuse power expose themselves completely. And when it arrives, there is no escape. This story reminds us of a powerful truth. Real character is revealed when there is nothing left to gain. Wealth, status, and appearances can hide cruelty, but only for so long. When circumstances strip everything away, the people who stay, protect, and care without reward are the ones who truly matter. In real life, pay attention to who stands beside you in your weakest moments, not your strongest. Those are the people who define your true worth. What would you do if everything you had disappeared tomorrow? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next powerful story. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that matter.